Welcome back to the End Time Shepherd channel. As we conclude this journey getting to the bottom of this bombshell Epstein file release, what they were really trying to accomplish, why they were showing their hand, what it's all leading to, and now you can see at series end that this disclosure was just one of many. Really just the tip of the iceberg. And you've seen a lot of things that, look, we can't mince words. It's scary stuff. It's the stuff that I told you up front. None of the talking heads that pretend to be our friends are ever going to tell you until it's too late. But always remember this. This stuff is happening whether we want to believe it or not. And that's not meant to sound condescending, but what I'm saying is we really only have two options. This is God's will. It's prophecy playing out. And anyone opposing God's will is not serving him. They're serving the other side. Now more than ever, we can look at things in binary terms. Good versus evil. Serving God or serving the devil. Serving Jesus Christ or serving the Antichrist. And the many Antichrists in the world. Because an Antichrist is anything or anyone who opposes Jesus Christ and his laws and his will and his disciples trying to spread his word. And there are many, and there are about to be many more. But our choices are to be scared and prepared or scared and unprepared. With no options. You now have the ability to be the former, the few, while most, the wide gate, will be scared and unprepared, sadly. So there's nothing to tease anymore, no open loops left. It's just playing the hand that we've been dealt. And I'm going to help you do that because like everything else in this world, if you just apply a little bit of critical thinking, you can turn these into not as scary as they seem on the outset. I'm going to help you to accept this information in the same way that I had to. Because I've had a lot of time to think about it. I've had a lot of times to look at it in a different light and find peace with it. And that's the kind of peace that I want you to have. Jesus said that the truth will set you free. And most people don't understand what that means. Free from the bondage of sin. Free from this world of lies. Free from all the deceptions that are coming up and that have always been there, but that people have no idea about. Because like I said in the previous video, they are not led by the Spirit. They don't believe that Satan's real. They pay him lip service. They think he's nothing to worry about, that he doesn't have anyone who serves him. 1 Corinthians 3:19, the wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. So all those people who think they're so wise, who like to be little truth speakers, what they perceive to be wisdom of this world, in a world full of lies ruled by the father of lies, that kind of wisdom is foolishness to God. But the Antichrist, the mark of the beast, the Noahide laws, Project Bluebeam, you know about all of them now. And you also know, since we live in a world of lies, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that obviously, and I do mean obviously, characters like Trump and Elon are not our friends. They're not fighting for our rights. We don't have the freedoms that they tell us that we do. We don't have the power that they tell us that we do in the Constitution. We don't have anyone serving us in Congress. No one on the main stage is there to save us or to help us. But these two in particular, it's pretty clear who they are in terms of the book of Revelation, the Antichrist and the false prophet, the two beasts themselves. But hey, I always leave a small percentage just in case I'm wrong, because we're in the here and now. No one knows. But when you see all the headlines and you see them speaking very clearly about their Messiah coming and about Trump and all the different headlines and coins that he's on and billboards he's on talking about him like he's the second coming of God, people saying outright he's their new Messiah.
I was visiting Jonathan in his Jewish voice, so I went to the Jewish deli. And of course, we had the discussion on Trump. And I asked them, who is Trump to you? And you know what they said? Trump is our new Messiah, actually.
I've heard many people take credit for you being here, or for some of your victories, and for being in the sacred office of the president. But the truth of it is you are here because of God and because of you. Just wanted to share this thought and pray over President Trump. Jesus taught us so many lessons through his death, burial, and resurrection. He showed us great leadership. Great transformation requires great sacrifice. And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price. It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you. God always had a plan. On the third day, he rose, he defeated evil, he conquered death, hell, and the grave. And because he rose, we all know that we can rise. And sir, because of his resurrection, you rose up. Because he was victorious, you were victorious. And I believe that the Lord said to tell you this. Because of his victory, you will be victorious in all you put your hand to.
I mean, these theories don't come from nowhere. They never have. Any of these so-called conspiracy theories, and not to sound at all arrogant, but I hope if you've come this far, you're not getting the impression that you're dealing with someone who is the way they stereotype us. Had to repeat kindergarten 3 times, dropped on my head, you know, the usual. But unfortunately, these people don't know. They never will know the truth because they're too busy mocking the people who are trying to save them while siding with the people who are enslaving them. And among the things that I'm going to do to prepare you and help you make sense of what you just saw in the previous video and videos, and I'll just give away the ending. This does have a happy ending. I'm not here to just dump a load of bad news on your plate, even though the truth will save your soul if you act on it. But you will have greater peace and happiness than most in the world. And I'm going to give you some tips that I personally use to that end. And one of them is going to be how to navigate through all the headlines, through the interactions you have with people who aren't going to get it because they never do, or very few do. But I will always go back to COVID when you remember the people who had the loudest, most vocal, most vicious, and cocksure opinions, that there was no way they were wrong. They were certain that if you didn't comply, you were an awful person. Well, just remember that, because that was not a one-off. That is the norm. The people who understand the least and know the least are sure, due to their own pride, that they're right. So if you ever feel ganged up by people who just don't get it and you're being mocked and ridiculed, pity them. But just unplug from there. There's nothing fruitful that can come of that. That interaction can only cause you to sin by hating your neighbor and saying and doing things that are only going to hurt your own soul. And that kind of wickedness, that kind of hostility during COVID, it's just a preview of what's to come. Because people who aren't guided by the Spirit also act out of fear, not faith. It's a very sad reality, but it's one that I've come to terms with, and eventually you will too, especially once these people turn on us. And the Tower of Babel was all about God foiling their plan and scattering their tongues and their nations to set them back thousands of years. And they get together at things like the World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg meetings, Bohemian Grove, and of course the United Nations, which is truth in plain sight because the Tower of Babel, rebuilt, is all about uniting the nations that God had scattered. You know, that place that John D. Rockefeller and Alice Bailey, 2 of the highest Luciferians, created on 666 UN Boulevard, that is a painting of the New World Order and the phoenix rising from the ashes, which you now know is the Antichrist. That place that Trump routinely speaks at, and they give us headlines like, oh, Trump went there and showed the globalists what's up. No, he didn't. You see Trump talking at the UN to the whole world, all the Masons, the descendants of those who tried to build the Tower of Babel and never gave up, talking about using AI governance at the United Nations, the New World Order, in disguise, founded by the Rockefellers and Alice Bailey, who formed Lucifer Publishing, now Lucius Trust. And that's also why it's key for you to understand and accept that all these nations are not competing with each other. They're not enemies, they're all friends, and they all want the same thing, and it's not what we want. And so eventually when they show you, as Ronald Reagan has brainwashed humanity over and over and over again, as well as Bill Clinton, because again, there is no right or left, then alien invasion will unite all the nations, and the Antichrist will come as a peacemaker. And you'll see why all the nations will unite, because they've always been united. That's why it'll be a false miracle, world peace uniting all the nations. It will appear to be a miracle that this world will finally not be at war. The Antichrist has united all the different governments of the world who were in competition because they really weren't. That's the illusion. Antichrist, false prophet, fake miracle workers. And they still pretend that Elon, a billionaire, is the richest man in the world, which proves that all the world is a stage because the Rothschilds, the 13 families, they're trillionaires. They still pretend that Democrats are the enemy, when politics are completely fake. And Donald Trump and Elon know that. Our overlords do what they want, as they always have, all throughout history. And the actual enemies, Trump and Elon are all friends with, as are the Clintons, as are the Bidens, as are the Obamas, et al. It's all of them. We never know their name or face otherwise. We only know them by face and name because they're serving a purpose for those they serve, the Brotherhood, the Freemasons. They are all of one accord. They work together, in unison, no division. This is why so few of them can enslave 99% of the world, because we're all divided and bickering over things that don't matter. They're just characters on the world stage playing their role. If not, they'd be like the 13 families who actually rule this world, who you would never know even if they walk by you in the street. And Trump and Elon know this full well, but they pretend they don't. They pretend there's this nefarious shadow government, this deep state that we just don't know about.
The Democrats.
Two fake parties always blaming each other with directly opposed ideologies, agendas, narratives, and those narratives are pushed from BlackRock, the same parent company. But the indoctrination of your vote counting is so thick by design that it causes most people to miss all these things I'm talking about. Drain the swamp, the deep state. They never talk about who the actual threat is because they serve them, and quite likely that role, them serving the deep state, them serving the actual threat, that role could actually be inverted, as so many signs are pointing to. So let's get into finding the best path forward with this information that's been dumped in your lap. Some things to look out for moving forward aside from what you already know, and some actionable items to keep yourself and your loved ones safe with this newfound information, this new truth that you're embracing. Just no real way to ease someone into what you just saw. I saved it for last for that reason. And this is where I'm saying that you have to invert the way you think and realize that and remember that we're all going to die someday. Every one of us. Unless we live to the end of days. But if we do, either way, we're going to have to endure a lot of suffering. But that's temporary. It's what I've been saying through every series I've created on this channel. Jesus said time and time again, carry your cross. No student is greater than his teacher. No slave is greater than his master. If they hate you, remember they hated me first. Which means you're going to be hated. But remember, that's the path that every servant of Christ has to take. And for those that think they could just get to heaven without paying any price, that's just doing it your own way and wanting to believe what you want to believe. And don't get me wrong, I understand why people want to believe that. But I just believe what Jesus said, because what he says takes precedence over anyone else's word, anyone else's opinion, anyone else's own personal translation that's rooted in just personal benefit and rooted in what they call mercy. Oh, if you don't get on board with this, you're denying Jesus' mercy. No, I'm not. I'm not denying his word. And it said very clearly, and I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded, and they rose from the dead. The apostles were martyred, the prophets were martyred. It's meant to sound like a scary thing in this world we live in because you're taught by Satanists to cling to your life, just like they do. And those people who are so afraid to give up their life, who want to live forever, those are the exact kind of people who will take the Neuralink or whatever they're dangled by all these evil people with the promise of, you'll live forever. When these people extending our lives is the literal opposite of their agenda. Our job is to get to heaven. Period. That is it. And if you have a family, it's your job is to get them to heaven too. Now, I obviously don't know if this decision is going to be for each and every person. I mean, I know the mark is going to be, but I don't know if that means the chopping block for everyone. There could definitely be a remnant of Christians who have to endure the Antichrist reign. You see, what most people do, what a lot of people like to do, I can't say most, is focus on the rapture, saying that God will protect us from all this. And again, this goes back to what I just said. I'm not denying God's mercy. I'm just going by what Revelation says. I'm giving you the worst case scenario, preparing you for the absolute worst. And if your path is easier, no one's going to complain about that. If I have people underprepared and the worst happens, I haven't done my job, and that will be on me. Pray for the best, prepare for the worst. And faith, for all those who spend all day every day fighting over works and faith, which I actually covered very conclusively in my series about the devil's deceptions or the Jesus' Commandments series. But at any rate, For any of us to have to live through this decision, it's going to require an immense amount of faith. The kind that Abraham had when he put his son Isaac on the pyre, willing to sacrifice his own son at God's request, only to find out he didn't actually have to do it. That's faith in action. And we're going to have that kind of faith too.
I think it's now. I think we've achieved AGI.
You think you can have a company run by an AI system like this?
Possible. And the reason for that is this. You said a billion, and you didn't say forever. And so, for example, it is not out of the question that a claw was able to create a web service, some interesting little app that all of a sudden, a few billion people used for 50 cents.
Faith that no matter how much we're hated, no matter how much the world turns against us, even family members, even best friends, even to cost us our lives, that we will still have faith in Jesus Christ no matter what, because that is what it's going to take. Now, I promised I was going to also cover Tucker Carlson so you can know categorically, behind the fact that he wears a Kabbalah bracelet out in the open, and you saw him with Conor McGregor, another Freemason. They just had an interview blatantly in a Freemasonic lodge. You could see the checkerboard floors, the black and white duality. Anytime you see the black and white symbolism, that's what it's talking about, the duality. You have him telling all these tall tales about, no, my dad wasn't in the CIA. Then I found out that he was in the CIA. Then you see a clip from years before where he's talking about he's going to all these different wars with his dad and the CIA. He's a liar, clearly. An agent. They all are. But if you remember that book, The Talmud, said that Jesus is in a pot of his own excrement in hell.
האם זה נכון שהוא בבריכה של צער או תחת?
כן. הוא עבר עבירות קשות, מתחילה הוא היה סוטה, אמר לו רשע, ואז סילק אותו מעל פניו. סיפור גדול, עשה כל העבירות שבעולם, ואנחנו סבלנו מהנצרות. עכשיו הוא נידון שם במה שאמרת, ואף יותר מזה. שאלו אותו באוב.
שהוא כאילו לתמיד שם בצער או תחת בעולם הבא?
למה לא?
זה לתמיד?
כן, מה יש?
Says very clearly what they think about people who aren't them and what should be done to them, that we're not even human, that when the Messiah comes into the world, every one of them will have 2,800 Gentile slaves. Well, in addition to that, you get to hear what Tucker Carlson has to say about the Noahide laws, those things you just heard about, in full. And then you will know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, hopefully, that what I've been saying is true. In 2026, forget about the way things used to be. Right now, things are not the way they used to be, and they're only going to get worse. You cannot be famous and have household name recognition unless you're part of it.
Non-Jews have 7 laws of Noah. That's all you got to do, and you get into heaven. And they're pretty easy.
They're great.
They're great.
If you are a Noahide, meaning you don't believe in Jesus or any of that other garbage, you don't believe in any other false religions, false idols, any of that stuff, no idolatry, and you live by the 7 Noahide laws, guess what? You have a place in the world to come. That's as simple as that, okay?
They're great.
They're great. They're pretty easy. Don't eat an animal while it's still living.
Exactly.
Should be a no-brainer.
Don't kill.
Don't kill. Harder for some people, but not others. Don't rape. Even harder for some people, but most are still on the right side of it. I forget what the other ones are.
Adultery.
Yeah. It's not that hard, and you get to go to heaven.
So him and his buddy said, they're great. Oh gosh, they're so easy and so reasonable. Right. If you don't bow down to the Antichrist, you're transgressing a Noahide law and you're going to be decapitated. That's what Tucker considers to be great. So easy, very reasonable. You want to continue trusting this guy here on out. It's free will. But that's on you.
It's not that hard, and you get to go to heaven.
Going to heaven has never been our goal. Instead of wanting to go to heaven, which is the goal of most religions, Judaism wants to bring God down to earth. Why? Because that's what God asked. That's what the Torah is all about. God telling us how to bring him down to earth.
It's not that hard, and you get to go to heaven.
They're like very reasonable.
Yeah, they're not like hard ones to do.
No, they're all kind of rooted in natural law.
Yeah.
No, I read that. And
Yeah, when you convert, they're like, what are you doing this for? You're just going to make it harder on yourself. You're going to heaven already.
That's interesting. Okay. You don't feel there's any contempt at all in that?
There becomes contempt.
I didn't know what the Talmud was until pretty recently. I'm reading it. I actually think it's really interesting.
This is very cut and dried. I've shown you what's in that book. You do not wear a Kabbalah bracelet and not know what's inside the Talmud. This is what these people's jobs are. They are strangers. You don't know them. You just feel like you do. They present us with conservative options that say that they're Christian, they're protecting Christian values because you would never trust them otherwise. They're deceivers. And actually, in many cases, rank wise, in the Brotherhood, they're no different than many of the presidents you've seen, like Joe Biden. They just play different roles. The hierarchy that they give us is completely made up. As I've shown you before, as a perfect example, they tell us that Larry Ellison and Elon Musk are vying for world's richest man, 2 billionaires. Both bought Twitter and now called it X, when in actuality, the wealthiest families are trillionaires. I mean, it's on public record that the Rothschild family are multi-trillionaires. There's rules for them and rules for the animals. You think these people pay taxes? You think they pay for goods? You think they pay for utility bills? Satan rules this world. He serves them. They don't pay for anything. And that's another thing. For people that are always like, oh, it's all about the money with these people. It's always the same people. Most people say that. Remember, most always get it wrong. It's not about money with these people. They steal ours and print their own with the central banks. It's never about money. And to the extent that it is about money, it's about parting the money from our pockets so that we have less flexibility, so that we are more under their thumb, reliant on Big Brother. That's where it's all about money. But so you got Tucker Carlson going on there, speaking a lot of truth and leading people where? Exactly where I said, right off the cliff when it matters most. Joe Rogan doing the exact same thing. The propaganda of Project Bluebeam and what this world's doing and trying to frame this war as a holy war to usher in Jesus Christ. Well, if they were telling you the truth, they would tell you that the Antichrist has to come before Jesus Christ, but they're relying on you not knowing that. And most don't. Very sadly. And so think about how this works in practice. You have people for years, who it's appointment listening or viewing. The Joe Rogan Show, Tucker Carlson, these two people that seem like they're on a journey with you trying to learn the truth of this world. When in reality, their job is to tell you what the powers that be, their masters, want you to believe the reality this world is. So then, if they're telling you truth after truth after truth, eventually when they tell you about the Noahide laws, people are going to be like, Noah? I like Noah. And they're telling you things like, it's so great, it's so easy, and then you get to go to heaven. It's a no-brainer. And that, why can't Jesus come back in AI? I mean, because if you think about it, see, these things make a lot of sense to people who don't know the Bible. That's why I keep repeating over and over again, Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Just want to make it clear that this is not me judging, condemning. I take no pleasure whatsoever in the fact that most aren't going to make it. But I'm just trying to save what I can for God, to glorify Him. I'm led by the Spirit. My job is just to share truth in as compelling and convincing and well-supported way as I can, by using the eyes to see, ears to hear, and the discernment and the strength to handle the truth that God's blessed me with. But your job too is just get the truth out there. It's the Holy Spirit who dwells within them to make that conversion. But I want to do everything I can. I don't wish for anyone to go to the lake of fire. Anyone, good or bad. You'd have to be pretty evil and wicked to wish that on someone. And we have to be better than that. We can't be people of love if we're wishing that on someone. And you may say, well, they deserve it. That's also not up for us to say. It's natural, our mind goes there, but part of the faith that we need to have is that everything will be meted out on Judgment Day. God sees everything. Part of His divine mercy is allowing all this extra time for people to snap out of it and get right. Even the most wicked. Do I think that's going to happen? No, a lot of them are under MK mind control. They sold out. They're in the Brotherhood. They're blackmailed. But with God, all things are possible. So yes, pray for everyone, friend or foe. Don't wish hell on anyone. Because if those people are destined for the lake of fire, they're going to make it whether you wish it on them or not. All you be doing by wishing that on them is taking part in wickedness. So that's number 2 of a person that's cozying up to you that people love because they can't understand these people don't hire people to gain your trust and hijack it and deceive you. They don't hire people to play those roles who are reprehensible, repugnant, who you don't like whatsoever. Candace Owens too, she plays this game. They all play this same game. Oh, I woke up to the evil and I learned and I became a conservative, and everyone loves hearing that. But politics are fake. They love to play this game where they're friends with you and they're on this journey learning the ways of the world just like you. But all they're doing is trying to connect with you and create that bond. So eventually, the things that they learn at some point are going to be incorrect on purpose. You're just not going to know it because you've trusted them all those years. And then it's going to be difficult for you to course correct and say, now I don't trust this person. Because once you trust someone long enough, it's very difficult to turn back from that. These are some very basic things, controlled opposition, but I saved it for last because I know how emotional the ties that people have to these people are. These deceivers. And every single one of them, Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, the whole lot of them. Every one of them told you to vote for Trump, and look what he turned out to be. Exactly what anyone who was paying attention to this man's life for 70 years knew he was. And it's not just politics, it's anywhere you look. The agendas are out there. That's why I'm saying the past is not relevant. Anyone with a big platform is pushing the agenda.
Guys, the most futuristic technology on the planet. But next, we're going with the $10,000 technology, Neuralink, which is a computer chip surgically implanted into the brain, enabling people like Nolan here to reconnect to the world. So you were paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah, and for about 8 years, I was trying to find some purpose in my life.
And then you got Neuralink, and what has that changed?
Anything anyone can do on a computer, I can do.
And he literally does it by using only his brain. You are currently moving that with your thoughts.
Yeah, man.
I want to see you send a text with your brain.
Okay.
His hands are paralyzed, but we're going to film them so you can see they're not moving. And using the neurons firing in Nolan's brain, Neuralink can translate those signals into movements. He just typed hi with his mind. Is this not crazy to anyone else? But that's not all he can do. So you just think left, and you're about to turn left.
Left, right, don't die.
No!
There we go.
He absolutely crushed us playing with only his mind.
I never thought would allow me to do anything like this.
And future technology can not only help the mind, but also the body.
For those of you who don't know, that's a huge YouTube channel which they promote, which is a telltale sign. If you're speaking truth, the algorithm does not promote your channel. But Mr. Beast gets propped up. And why? Because he normalizes things that he's told to normalize. He pushes agendas and creates harmful trends that he's told to do. That's why I'm saying in 2026, I'm sure it wasn't always this way. It's a slow degradation. They're masters of psychology and mind control, manipulation. They study us like lab rats. What works, what doesn't. They've got it down to a science because I gotta be honest, my brothers and sisters, not all that difficult to fool, sadly. Again, they trust all the wrong people. They're married to the lies that they were fed in school, on the news, in college, and they have a need to fit in, to conform, which we're commanded not to for our own protection. And sadly for them, they don't realize that when they still regurgitate what they were taught to say and programmed to say, conspiracy theorists, I think your tinfoil hat's on too tight, they think they're dunking on people. It's just embarrassing at this point. I've said it before. These people really think that we're not on board with what we're all supposed to believe is true because we just don't get it. We didn't go to school and learn what they learned. We don't have the ability to Google something or ask AI. It's not that we don't know what we're supposed to believe. We were just humble enough and had the courage enough to pursue the truth wherever it took us. And the truth always leads you back to one fundamental truth. The Bible is real, and you only think it's not because Satanists rule this world, which it says in the Bible, and people spend their entire lives reading all these stupid books that don't matter, like Catcher in the Rye, How to Kill a Mockingbird, all these worldly books that don't do anything, when there's only one book that can save your soul, the one book we've all been taught not to read. And so I'm just letting you know, be prepared to be mocked and ridiculed. But when you do, remember I'm giving you pointers on how to move forward. Feel bad for them. Pray for them. Because in 2026, if you are still all in and you haven't sensed that anything is amiss, how are they going to make it through all these landmines that you learned about? I can't answer that question either. And the other part is, these things, when they call you names, first off, when you want to debate someone, the second you resort to ad hominem attacks, name calling, you've lost the battle. What you end up finding is these people cannot support why they believe what they believe because they only believe it because it was told to them. Period. They don't believe it because it makes any logical sense. They haven't researched the other side pushing back to say, hey, none of that's true. And a lot of times, it's fear. It's more comfortable to file these things away as, that's crazy talk. That'll never happen here. Oh, stop black pilling. Stop being a negative Nancy. Because then when they go to put their head on the pillow at night, they don't have to face the reality. They could just kick that can down the road. But sticking your head in the sand is not going to save you. It's like a burglar came into your house and you were so consumed with fear that you just went in the fetal position, covered your eyes with your hands, and had an expectation that you were going to survive it just because you can't see it. It's really fundamentally no different. And I'm also trying to give you some talking points for when you're talking to your loved ones, your family members, your friends, anyone and everyone. I mean, my gosh, it is so hard to just wake up one person, but it's worth it. You want to store your treasures in heaven? You want to serve the Lord? This is the best way how. Because if the best way for Satanists to serve their God is to lure Christians to hell, or any of God's children to hell, then steering them off the wide path into the narrow gate that leads to salvation in heaven is the best way to serve our God. Everything's inverted. But anyone on the main stage, I don't care if it's YouTube, I don't care if it's regular TV, the movies, all these different political commentators like Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, these people are all just pretending. They're part of the division mechanism. They're part of the theater. Sure, they'll tell you a little bit of truth, but if anyone really taught you all these things in this 7-part series, has anyone told you the real reason why this stuff is happening, like I have in this series? And that's not to toot my own horn. The entire truth community understands exactly what I'm talking about. But they're gatekeepers of truth. Sure, they'll feed you some things, but only what they're allowed to. And eventually, like you see with Tucker Carlson, with Joe Rogan, their job is to steer you right off a cliff. And that cliff leads directly into the lake of fire. And that is not an exaggeration. You know that by now. They don't let good people, much less Christians, much less truth speakers, have a big following with a lot of influence, with the ability to undo all the work that they've done deceiving people. You see Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, all the last people on the face of the earth that you should trust. And what are they doing? All trying to normalize the idea of an AI Messiah. An AI Messiah, which is also what, as you saw the Israeli woman say, is what our friends on the other side are waiting for, which the ADL also said is hateful to have a problem with, which tells you everything you need to know.
And of course, we are well known for our Noahide laws, that we brought this to a light. So now they are building their own kingdom. It's the Jewish earthly kingdom with headquarters in Jerusalem, where their AI Messiah will be.
What was Joe Rogan doing? And Mr. Beast. But Joe Rogan specifically said, why can't Jesus come back as AI? Well, anyone that's read the Bible knows that he comes down exactly the way he left. In the sky, with his angels, calling those who have been loyal, first those who are dead, rising from the dead and meeting him up in the sky, and those who are martyred for his name. And this is where it goes back to people living in the world, trusting all these Satanists, and not knowing scripture well enough. They perish for lack of knowledge. So for anyone who's getting upset with me exposing Joe Rogan, I'm literally exposing a guy who's trying to destroy your soul, purposely. That's his job. At Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, same thing. I'm sure they'll feed you kernels of truth every step of the way, until that one time they don't, and it costs you your soul. Who would sign up for a job like that? Think about that. Or, if they're in the Brotherhood, or if they're in the Sisterhood, the Eastern Star, that's the female version of Freemasons, then it goes back to what I've been saying. They don't have a choice. I mean, Tucker Carlson talking about the Talmud. Oh, it's great. We're not human. Jesus Christ is boiling in a pot of his own excrement. Yeah, it's great. And the Noahide laws, so easy. Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense to see Tucker Carlson in a Freemasonic lodge with Conor McGregor and Tucker Carlson always wearing his Kabbalah bracelet. See, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. We've got to understand and accept we've never needed these famous people or these so-called experts, because all the experts in the world, and that includes the various priests, reverends, ministers, pastors, especially in America, who get money from the government, 501c3 status, and are thereby limited in terms of what they're able to say, and are also going to the exact same whitewashed educational system that all doctors, teachers, lawyers, historians, and definitely scientists undergo when they go through higher learning, air quotes. We're on our own here, but with the Holy Spirit, and that is more than enough. We've been lied to. We've been deceived into not trusting our own eyes, ears, and God given discernment to discern the truth, to know His will, to know the way to survive out of this hellhole. And the very fact that you have to survive this hellhole to make it to heaven just shows you, what are you clinging to? What are any of us clinging to? Now that you know what this world consists of, who rules it, the practices that are done to the most innocent, the innocent who will never, ever receive justice in this world. What's so great about this world? The people? Sure, I can get on board with that. The dogs, the pets? Sure, I can get on board with that. But guess what? Any of the best ones are going to be in heaven too, without any of this suffering. Let's go right in order. Look at what we have to endure to make it to the finish line. That few will be able to do. And I've gotten you this far. I've equipped you with all the truth that you need. It's your choice to walk in it. Jeremiah 6:16, thus says the Lord, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where the good way is, and walk in it. Then you will find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. And that's Jeremiah the prophet, saying long in advance the time that we're living in. And perhaps it's always applied. We've always been called to walk on a path that will lead directly to heaven. But the most, the wide gate, the many versus the few, most have always said, or through their actions have said, we will not walk in it. And so it's time to unplug from this world mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We can't do it physically yet. You can live your life here with greater joy and peace than anyone who's plugged into it. That's the other deception. You would think knowing all this is a huge burden, but it actually is not once you come to accept it and you get through the denial process, which is natural. It's going to happen for all of us, and I can't give you a time frame because it's different for each person. But whereas in the past, most people go through this throughout many years of their lives, it's like I said before, you're drinking from a fire hose because we don't have a lot of time. The time people would normally have to organically go down the proverbial rabbit hole, that time is dissipated because people have said, that's crazy. I don't want to look at that. That's scary. I don't believe that. That's not true. People say things aren't even true without even looking at them, which is foolish. I hear people say all the time, I don't need to look at that. That's stupid, which is a dumb statement to make, but this is what we're up against. These are the people that are going to turn against us. I actually one time heard during the pandemic, someone say, I don't care if the jab kills me. I'd rather that than people think of me as an anti-vaxxer. Think about that. How quickly are people like that going to turn against us when it hits the fan? But one thing I want to underscore is as the world gets darker, we need to do the opposite, remember. So dig in with God. Lean on Him in all His ways. Read the Bible. Understand more about Him. And I'll create more videos. I'll try to. Because quite frankly, this series and the 2 series that preceded it were the whole reasons I created this channel. It should be more than sufficient to get you to where you need to be. But if I find any other concepts and ideas, and I'm sure I will, I pray all the time, if there's something that God wants me to deliver, I'll be led by the Spirit. But we have to pray for these people. The natural thing to do is going to be to push back, to fight, to say nasty things to them and about them. Pray for your enemy. Bless those who curse you. Do not exchange insult for insult. And this is not only a command to be in obedience with Christ's will, but it's also going to protect us from saying things that we're going to regret that are being sent directly to a database. I see people all the time on Twitter, on various social media networks where you're allowed to pretty much mouth off, saying all kinds of things that are just going to come back to bite them in a big way later on. And I don't restrain the things that I want to say about people that I would have said in the past because I wasn't always like this. Very far from it. The truth wakes you up and makes you realize the only one thing that matters in this world is where you're headed for eternity. That's it. And once you see the truth of this world and you realize that hell or the lake of fire are demonstrably, indescribably worse, yeah, it's common sense. It's elementary math. This world's pretty awful now that I see it for what it is. And to go somewhere way worse, I mean, can you just even stop and think about it? I know people don't like to, but come on. It's a helpful exercise. Have you ever accidentally touched a plate when it was too hot? Have you ever accidentally touched a burner forgetting that it was on? Just for a split second. And you got to ice it. It just throbs for the rest of the day or longer. Now imagine your entire body immersed in flames, and not just regular flames, spiritual flames. Fire that is not restricted by any earthly elements or parameters, combined with complete removal of everything that God provides: love, joy, hope, rest, peace, light, smiling, laughter, anything good in this world gone forever. And that's what people are going to choose because they don't realize. They think they could do it their way. They think they don't need God. A lot of them are going to find out the hard way. Everything good in this world came from God. And they were deceived into believing it all just was here. You don't really need God. So before we move forward and try to process some of this Mark of the Beast, Project Bluebeam alien deception, the Antichrist reign, the Noahide laws, just remember how fortunate you are to know the truth, accept the truth, and have the chance to be saved by the truth. Because this is the best we can do. In this world of lies, a truth is better than any broadsword to cut down the web of lies. I'm just trying to let you know your hope is in Jesus Christ. And if that's insufficient for you, make it sufficient. Because it's the only one thing that matters, and He is the only way for us to go from here to somewhere, not worse, but the antithesis of what I just described about hell and the lake of fire. I've said this before. Make a list of everything you can't stand in this world. Gone. No fear, no anxiety, no pain, no aches, no illness, no death, no tears, no goodbyes, no traffic jams, no commutes, no 9 to 5, no dementia, no senility, no aging. Perfect bliss, perfect happiness, forever. Put your hope in Jesus Christ alone. Find other people who are of that ilk. They train us to hate each other. Because if we're doing that, we're not focusing on the actual enemy. Your enemy is not a Democrat if you're a Republican. And if you're a Republican, your enemy is not the Democrat. If you noticed in that Noahide video, both Republican and Democrat signed those laws into place where they were distracting us with all manner of news headlines, agendas, division mechanisms, always keeping us busy, always keeping us sinning. The second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. The greatest, of course, being put God first. And this world teaches you to do neither, to be so distracted that everything else is more important than God. Soccer practices, football games, vacations. Loving your neighbor? No, they voted different, even though elections don't count. And for all these people that make it to the pearly gates and have to answer why they hated their neighbor, saying they voted differently is not going to help. Now, some other things. It is very likely, and this is across the board, I'm talking people that have channels like mine, which is a hybrid of theology and also just truth. It's just the truth channel. But there are many truth channels that don't want to get into theology and many theology channels that don't want to get into some of these so-called conspiracy theories. But it's all starting to cross over because truth is truth, no matter where you get it from. But what I'm saying is the theological communities that are speaking truth and the truth channels that cover so-called conspiracy theories all agree the Neuralink is... I really haven't heard anyone else say that it's not Neuralink, the mark of the beast.
The purpose of Neuralink is to create a high bandwidth interface to the brain such that we can be symbiotic with AI.
Neuralink in Greek is 666 in numerology. Neuralink has Satan encoded in it. The Grok logo is Saturn. Grok AI is a toppled over cross signifying the conquering of Christianity, the fall of Christianity. You got May Musk, who could not look more like out of the pits of hell, and she's telling you to put this in your body? Which I guess I shouldn't really be surprised that people would fall for that because Bill Gates, Peter Hotez, people just don't seem to have any discernment. And anyone that gets on TV and says, I want to help you, this is good for your health, put it in your body, people just go ahead and do it. It's very sad to see. Trump and Elon are very likely to be the actual two beasts mentioned in Revelation. The abomination of desolation may or may not occur with the rebuilding of the third temple and the Antichrist seated on that throne, or it could be the Vatican. Very few are talking about that, and it makes a whole lot of sense. If they want us to believe that the Antichrist is Jesus Christ, seating him in the Vatican makes a lot of sense. But ultimately, the only thing you have to remember is that Jesus Christ is not going to come until the end of times. The Antichrist must come first. If that's the only thing you remember, that's good enough. The Antichrist will come before Jesus Christ, and they will go all out to deceive us into believing that that's Jesus Christ. So just know the order. That in and of itself puts you ahead of 90% of the world. And of course, one of the primary means they're going to use to scare people, to consolidate power, so that we have a centralized world government, because as you heard Ronald Reagan say 5 billion times, along with Bill Clinton, also Democrat and Republican, two presidents that signed the no-hide laws into place over 30 years ago, they both said the one thing that will bring the world together is an alien invasion. Well, we see that's about to happen. I walked you through it. Aliens are demons and fallen angels. And Jesus said that the end days will be just like the days of Noah, which we're seeing includes floods, but back then there were also demons and fallen angels. So if there are actually things flying around, CERN did rip open the veil with whatever they're doing over there with the Hadron Collider. So if there are actually winged things flying all around, don't be surprised by that either. And they have technology to implant thoughts in your head to make it seem like, yes, this is God speaking to you. This is why it's so critical to have faith and understand what Jesus said. The Antichrist comes before Jesus Christ. And regarding the mark, regarding the Noahide laws, there's just no upside. Now, you want to talk about some signs of the time stuff. I never thought I'd be in a situation where I had to talk people into why this isn't such a big deal. But if you look at it this way, guillotine, it's over in 2 seconds. To the extent you feel it, it's like, that thing coming down at the force and speed it does, you may feel it in your neck, and next thing you know, you're in heaven. What's so bad about that? You think of all the other ways that our loved ones suffer as they exit this world. Dementia, cancer, Parkinson's, withering away to nothing. No quality of life, no free will, all decisions made for you, no memory, no purpose. And all these people going through all these things as they exit this world. Remember the narrow and the wide gate. Most people go through all that and still don't make it to heaven. Jesus made a very solemn promise within something that on the surface is scary, daunting. But the promise within that is for those who are martyred for him will see heaven. So remember that. Compared to other ways to go, it's not that bad when you get past the part of how archaic, barbaric, the optics, just looking at it. You break it down the way I did and you think about it and you compare it to the way most people die in this world, it's really not that bad. Especially since the way most people die is suffering a prolonged, protracted death and ultimately leading to a place that none of us want to go to. Think about that. I could give you 1,000 different reasons, but it all comes down to this. These people don't even think we're human.
Excuse me, I'm a Jew, and I just like to say that, in our Bible it says that you're like animals.
The goal is to have us as slaves, and the ones who aren't fortunate enough to be slaves will just be destroyed. But if you lose your life for Jesus' sake, you will save it. If you try to save your own hide and sell them down the river, you will lose it. And why is the mark so important? Why is it so unforgivable? Because it won't be a deception. That's why Werner von Braun told his assistant Carol, Project Bluebeam will be the final card, the final deception. Just like how the fallen angels didn't receive forgiveness because they knew exactly what they were doing when they rebelled. If you worship the Antichrist and accept the mark of his name, it will not be a deception. You will know exactly what you're doing. You will worship the Antichrist instead of Jesus Christ. Unforgivable. And the mark is also going to change your genetic code, which means you're not God's creation anymore. You're theirs, man and machine.
Gene editing. Exactly. Opening a whole new horizon for medical science.
And you see, the difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. If you take genetic editing, it's you who are changed.
It's why we've seen all this predictive programming throughout the movies, just like everything else. Things like RoboCop, fusing man and machine. Even things like Darth Vader. I told you there's a lot of predictive programming in Star Wars. Anakin Skywalker was about to die. But his master, the Emperor, the Antichrist, a guy who started an outsider politician who rose all the way up the ranks trying to save the Republic. Sound familiar? Who had a robot army to turn against everyone. Sound familiar? And who ultimately tricked Anakin into turning on his own people, the good side, and saved his life, saved in many air quotes, by fusing him with machine, turning him into a controllable puppet. And many will be deceived just like Anakin. So I guess the last item is cryptocurrency. Trump's been saying for years he's going to make America the crypto capital of the world. At some point, that seed planting is going to pay off. It is going to happen. And this is where I said before, they could always use those Doge refund checks as well as any kind of tariff rebate checks to put money in people's hands. And they will be printing more money, you could be sure of that. Put the money in their hand, have them put it into crypto so they could amplify their money, make everyone whole, and then the greatest wealth transfer of all time will have taken place as long as people being bamboozled. Switch over from paper currency, which is privacy, which is freedom, over to fully controllable money. What you have to understand is you don't have to know the terminology. You know they have interchangeable terms for the same thing: Great Reset, Tower of Babel, Antichrist, Beast System, New World Order, Communism, One World Government, Build Back Better, all the same thing. And so cryptocurrency, a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. Remember that they use clever wordsmithing that's not really that clever. Like instead of a smart city, Trump said we'll have freedom cities. Instead of universal basic income, Elon says we'll have universal high income. It's actually incredible that people fall for it, but just know that whatever they decide to do, and you're going to see theater where Trump looks like he's fighting the globalists and says we'll never have a CBDC here, any cryptocurrency is programmable money.
Mark Goodwin. I'm the editor-in-chief of Bitcoin Magazine. I'm the author of the book, The Bitcoin Dollar, which takes a look at basically the mechanisms of the new financial system that we are in that involves Bitcoin and dollarized tokens.
And what's the deal with stablecoins now?
Well, stablecoins are this funky little thing that they're really a bedrock of the crypto industry. And what they are is just dollar-denominated representations on a ledger. And they are basically just in the same way a normal retail bank would take a treasury from the United States and use that collateral to create a dollar instrument on top in your checkings account. And then they use them to issue dollar-denominated tokens on blockchains.
A lot of people are concerned now about CBDCs. What have you observed the plan is?
I would say within the United States, a directly issued government central bank digital currency is a total red herring. And they're going to do what they always do, which is hide behind the private market and the private sector and have private capital creation through private banks continue this racket. And the main thing that people sort of are scared about with CBDCs is surveillance and programmability and, all of your data and transactions being at the whim of big government and big brother. Well, they're recreating that exact same mechanism, except instead of the public sector, it's private banks, and it's JP Morgan, and it's Cantor Fitzgerald. This is not an improvement in any way. The private sector actually retains a lot more rights to restrict customer access than the public sector would. So they're going to do what they always do, and use the private sector to create a completely surveillable, completely programmable digital dollar. And we will see this fight against CBDCs by the likes of DeSantis and Trump and Vivek. And there'll be this total red herring false victory as then they move into the private stablecoin system that in every single way is the CBDC, except it's not issued directly by the government.
They learned all this stuff from the fallen angels. There isn't some random person who doesn't want any credit for creating Bitcoin called Satoshi Nakamoto. If you do any research on the Georgia Guidestones, you'll see that number one, those are their laws for the New World Order. Number two, the fact that they're written in all different languages is proof of the Tower of Babel. These are all the nations in all their different languages connecting as one. But we're also supposed to believe that some random person erected these giant slabs of concrete and the town didn't know about it. The city didn't know about it. There were no permits. You're just allowed to erect tons of slabs of concrete that say downright frightening things on them and no one noticed? No. We got Neil Armstrong, supposedly the first man to walk on the moon, unless you count the cameraman who took the picture of him walking off the quote-unquote spacecraft. And that's supposed to be the greatest marvel, the greatest achievement of mankind. Where's he been the last 60 years? Doesn't he want any credit?
ABC Digital wanted to give you the opportunity to swear in the Bible that you walked on the moon. Will you put your left hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
Gentlemen. Mr. Seibel.
Yes? If you really walked on the moon, why would you not do that? So why don't you just put the into the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Seibel, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Really? Well, no, it's a real Bible. You have the opportunity to have $5,000.
The meeting is not open.
Well, you have $5,000 cash. You can give it to charity if you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon.
Please
I have
give
a
it to
tape.
charity. It'd be fine.
Why don't you swear to? Why not? Why won't you do it? So why don't you put your hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
Mr. Seibel has made a fool of himself in front of the world. Mr. Seibel, you do not deserve answers.
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
You want me to knock you in the head?
Well, I want you to swear to God on the Bible that you walked on the moon.
Okay.
If you walked on the moon, we're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you if you don't leave me alone.
I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you get.
I'm heading out. I appreciate it.
And get the hell out of the house.
Take your stuff and get the fuck out. Why don't you quote me and say it's bullshit?
And the shadows in the wrong place. I don't give a damn about all that shit.
People are also unaware, for example, that nearly every astronaut NASA claims to have sent to space is actually a confirmed Freemason. John Glenn, two-time U.S. Senator and one of NASA's first astronauts, is a known Mason. Buzz Aldrin Jr., the second man to lie about walking on the moon, is an admitted, ring-wearing, hand-sign-flashing, 33rd degree Mason from Montclair Lodge No. 144 in New Jersey. Edgar Mitchell, another supposed moonwalker aboard Apollo 14, is an Order of Demolay Mason at Artesta Lodge No. 29 in New Mexico. James Irwin of Apollo 15, the last man to lie about walking on the moon, was a Tejon Lodge No. 104 member in Colorado Springs. Don Eisel on Apollo 7 was a member of the Luther B. Turner Lodge No. 732 in Ohio. Gordon Cooper, aboard Mercury 9 and Gemini 5, was a Master Mason in Carbondale Lodge No. 82 in Colorado. Virgil Grissom, on Apollo 1, Mercury 5, and Gemini 3, was a Master Mason from Mitchell Lodge No. 228 in Indiana. Walter Schirra Jr., on Apollo 7, Sigma 7, Gemini 6, and Mercury 8, was a 33rd degree Mason at Canaveral Lodge No. 339 in Florida. Thomas Stafford, on Apollo 10 and 18, Gemini 7 and 9, is a Mason.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. We destroyed that technology.
It was all recorded on these telemetry tapes. So where is this hard evidence?
I haven't seen anything that indicates the telemetry data is even in existence, and as I said, even if we had it, we don't have the machines to play it back.
But your own research has shown the telemetry data is missing.
That's right.
Could this be true? Mankind's first interplanetary exploration and the original science data is missing? If it's anywhere, it should be here at NASA's Goddard Space Center in Maryland, home to the National Space Science Data Archives.
This film you're making now, what is it?
Calling it Did We Go?
Did We Go? Okay.
Doesn't have it either. The Smithsonian doesn't have it. Johnson doesn't have it.
Right. We've been unable to track it down. I mean, we don't know where this telemetry data ended up, and we don't know what path it may have taken. So, unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't really give you much of a clue as to where this data ended up and whether it still exists.
Let's look at the photo. You say that's me? Okay. Check out the name badge. It says Aldrin. Looks like you're right. But notice the helmet. Can you see my face? No. This is a secret I've been keeping for almost half a century. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and I pulled off humanity's first extraterrestrial prank.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest. It didn't happen. It could have been scary.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
I remember my parents waking me up, and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon,
No,
which
you
was
didn't. No, you didn't.
what?
You watched animation. So you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memory.
Not a bad line. Not a bad line.
This is the first time we're going to send humans to the moon, and we're going to have humans in low Earth orbit. That is awesome. Like,
Now, sure, in the 70s, when people didn't have VCRs and they couldn't stop and pause and rewind and do close-ups and the footage was all grainy, it's understandable that people will fall for this. This day and age, there's literally no excuse. Especially not for you, now that you know that a German scientist who was brought over here from Operation Paperclip and was put in there as the head of NASA, who told his assistant that the alien deception will be a lie in addition to asteroids. He's flat out telling you, the head of NASA, it's all a lie. Just stealing our money, while luring souls into hell under the guise that this was all started based on nothing. There's no point of life. They created all these nihilist, anti-God nonsense, when all these people at the top are Luciferians. You want a motive? There it is. But also, common sense. I mean, I could just spend an entire video on this. So we went to the moon all these times, but now we can't go back, even though back then they had rotary phones, which somehow were able to reach the moon via phone call. Must have been the longest landline cord ever in the history of humanity, but no one talks about that. How did they have telephone access on the moon? Was there a telephone pole up there? And don't blame me, I'm just thinking, which is a crime in 2026. And how about the space wars? Did Russia also destroy the technology? Did Russia lose the moon tapes and the telemetry data as well? My, that's some coincidence for the coincidence theorists. They mock us, when in actuality, what they believe is the nonsense. I mean, a Big Bang, an explosion that created life, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. That's scientifically proven. Well, we go back to Yuval, who said how they weaponize science to control populations. And then you got all this footage of them hopping around and playing golf on the moon. Well, why doesn't that film crew get any credit? Oh, see, the devil's always in the details. You got a picture of Neil Armstrong, the iconic picture of him stepping off the spacecraft. Well, who took that picture? And if it needed a giant launcher to propel the spacecraft to the moon, how did that spacecraft get back? And again, the motive for people are like, why would they lie about something like this? Well, first off, as I've shown you, they lie about everything. They're Satanists. It's what they do. But the motive is quite clear. You can't be part of NASA unless you're one of them, a very high-ranking Freemason. And you find me someone who's a NASA fanboy, I will show you someone who's a diehard atheist that cannot be convinced otherwise. There's your motive. But I want to convince you over and over again. Elon fake sent the car into space. Mars is really Devon Island, Greenland. They can give you any excuse and people will just go along with it. What they won't go along with is their own friends, neighbors, relatives trying to show them, look, I researched it. I've done a lot of research. This entire series is me showing you, this is what they lied about. Here's your proof. This is what they lied about. Here's your proof. And the people that ridicule us and mock and try to shame us, number one, it doesn't work because I don't care what these people think and you shouldn't either. But when you're mocking and just calling names, what's missing is you supporting the reason why you believe it, because they can't do it. They only believe it because they were told repeatedly to believe it. That's it. It's a prison for your mind. When you can't think independently and you need your opinions and your beliefs fed to you, then you're ripe for the picking. Because the people at the top feeding you what to think and believe and how to feel and who to trust are the last people on the face of the earth you should trust. They don't even consider us human. So I'm going to move on because this is something you either get or you don't. But also to circle back around, they love using these anonymous people as heroes. Satoshi Nakamoto, QAnon, Neil Armstrong, the greatest achievement of mankind, and yet, where is he? He's in hiding because he doesn't want to get questioned. So don't fall for this whole Satoshi Nakamoto backstory. It's the government. They created it, they issued it, and eventually they're going to orchestrate a problem reaction solution where cryptocurrency is the solution, and with everything set up in place, the war, the banks are insolvent, the country's in $40 trillion debt, the dollar is dying, All by design, coordinated demolition. The energy crisis, the fuel crisis, the oil crisis, these things don't happen randomly. It's all the scripts ending at the same time, the end game for the Great Reset. And there will be people who harumph and don't realize that they're not winning when they do stuff like this, that say, I'll never get into cryptocurrency. I'll just keep all my money under the mattress, which is certainly an option until you quickly come to the realization that you have a large collection of currency that you can no longer use to buy or sell. Basically, just smelly paper worth absolutely nothing. And if just knowing how these people operate, you're going to have it so there's a carrot and a stick. You're going to have it so that your dollars, their buying power, doesn't really mean anything. What people don't understand is a dollar bill is a dollar bill. It's always worth a dollar. If a dollar used to buy you a pack of cigarettes 30 years ago, and now a dollar basically gets you 2 cigarettes, it's not the dollar's value that changes. That's not the marker. That's not how you measure it. It's in buying power. And as soon as people can't afford, and that's most people right now, for the prices to start skyrocketing, all while AI replaces jobs, robots replace jobs, then people will have no choice but to get into the crypto market, which I have no doubt in my mind. They will have all the prices soaring. That'll be the bait that I refer to. But as they've shown over and over again, they leave hints. I want to be careful with this, so I'm not going to spell anything out outright. I'm just going to show you the research that I found and to tell you, as always, whenever they're all telling you on the main stage that you have to get into this investment, that's the one not to get into. The one that they're dropping hints in cinema, predictive programming. We know the significance of X at this point. Hint, hint. We know affiliations, who they're connected to. People like to think that doesn't matter, which is insanity, but it does. Remember, they're always looking to deceive the maximum amount of people. The few will always escape from their agendas. They're okay with that. They're playing the percentages. It's collateral damage to them. So that's cryptocurrency. Just know, let no one deceive you. I've been in this market for a while because, again, I've known where this is going a long time ago. I've done the research, a lot of it, for years. It is categorically, unequivocally, undeniably all the same thing. And if you want to pay attention, the things that give it away, when they have the Fed meeting with Jerome Powell, and he talks about whether he's going to increase, decrease rates, you see an immediate either spike or sell-off in the market. And I'm talking every single stock and cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency of which there are millions. That's impossible. It's impossible that everyone would sell all at the same time the second Jerome Powell makes his announcement. Or they all start buying the second Jerome Powell makes his announcement at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time on the Wednesday when everyone's at work. And what would make everyone sell or buy if they were bullish on their investment? It doesn't make any sense. It's an obvious tell. Like everything else, these things are all made up. But if you're in the one that they need, that actually has utility, that has the partnerships, the one that they handpicked to succeed a long time ago and have dropped hints as they always do, then you could be among the few who are in the right one, while people are left guessing. And when they're left guessing because they can't figure it out because they don't do their own research, and they're afraid to just form their own opinions without being silver platter to them, what's going to happen? They're going to go by the wolves in sheep's clothing telling them, you have to get in this one, you have to get in that one, have to, while ridiculing and shaming the one you should actually be in. But remember about bait, they understand. They've got to dangle something real for this to work. For the greatest wealth transfer of all time, the Great Reset, the Phoenix Rising on the Economist cover from over 30 years ago, the Phoenix Bird sitting on top of a pile of paper money that is set ablaze. And so don't be surprised if the ones that they're steering you towards, especially the Trumps, because they do it all the time, don't be surprised if those ones do exceedingly well for a little while. And then once everyone's in, that's when they pull the rug out from under you. So just pay attention to what they're doing, what they're shilling, and what the masses are doing the most, and know to do the opposite. But if you've been paying attention to what I've been showing you on screen the last 2 minutes, then you already know what you need to know. I'll say no more. So that just about wraps up everything we need to cover in this series. Part 1, we set the stage by establishing that Israel is Jacob, who received the Abrahamic blessing to be the father of many nations. Jacob was renamed Israel, a person, and the 12 tribes of Israel are his sons. Israel is a people, not a country, much less a state, established in 1948, which you now know about, because we covered that in the second chapter. And in chapter 2, we also discussed why Jesus had such contentious interactions with the Pharisees, which after all the conditioning and all the lying and all the rewriting of history, I'm sure there are many Christians who thought, man, Jesus is being pretty harsh on them. No, he wasn't. These are the same people that have always ruled the world, the Pharisees. People pretending they're holy to disguise the fact that they are anything but. And when Jesus called them children of hell, said their father is the devil, he wasn't saying it as a derogation or symbolically. He meant it literally. And there's the other thing that you now understand. The Bible is meant to be taken literally. And the only reason people don't is because of the exact same people who knew he was Jesus and lied about it. Matthew 28:11. While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, "You are to say, his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed. And this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day. Truth was always right there in plain sight. Do you ever hear that read to you in church? No, they would never talk about that. But it confirms beyond a shadow of a doubt that these same Pharisees and Sadducees that comprise the Sanhedrin, you see over and over again, if you're familiar with the gospel, Jesus saying, when they were asking him questions, is it lawful to heal a man on the Sabbath? And it says over and over again, but Jesus knew that they were trying to trap him. They knew. And if you contrast what I just read you, them bribing someone to hide the fact that he rose from the dead, proving that he was God, contrast that with Matthew 27:50. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God." So if they really didn't believe before, the Pharisees that is, if they really didn't believe that he was the Son of God and he was blaspheming, they wouldn't have bribed people to cover it up, that he rose from the dead, proving he was God. Especially when you compare it to the centurion, who thought they were crucifying a guilty man, but came to realize after his death, wow, yeah, he must have been God. If the Pharisees had a similar reaction, like, oh boy, what have we done? This really was God, that'd be a different story. But they always knew, because their God is different than ours. The 70 elders who received a completely different doctrine at the base of Mount Sinai. Chapter 3 reinforced it, the Synagogue of Satan, by showing you a YouTube channel where they shared their thoughts and feelings about Christians and Jesus Christ. And all you really have to take from that is, can you imagine if I spoke that candidly in opposition of these people? So we live in a world where they can say whatever they want and do whatever they want. And if you call it out, it's anti-you-know-what. But they can say the most blasphemous things about our Lord, and there's no repercussions because who's going to arrest them? In chapters 4 through 6, I try my best to deftly maneuver because I know that the indoctrination and psychosis is so thick with people hanging to this power that they have, this illusory power that their vote counts, and that they're running the show. Look around. Would things really be this way if we were running the show? Can anyone really believe this is a true electoral system, a democracy, when our options in my lifetime have been George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, George Bush Jr., John Kerry, who George Bush Jr. was in the same secret society, Skull and Bones with, Obama, McCain, Romney. Then we get Hillary Clinton. So you got Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr., Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, who we're supposed to believe are not best friends, even though him and Bill are still friends to this day. And there was never any actual story about why him and Hillary were best friends and then stopped being friends, other than that he called her Crooked Hillary and said he was going to lock her up. Still waiting on that. Then our next options are Trump and Biden, Trump and Kamala, and people think this is a real electoral system. But you now know, as we got into the New World Order, What this Epstein file revelation was all about tearing down the system. All their different agendas that they carefully crafted and waited patiently are at the nexus point, all converging to tear down the current system and create the new one. Build back better. The Tower of Babel, that is. Not through bricks and mortar, as the Freemasons did a long time ago, but through technology. Connecting all the nations through Starlink, the internet, AI, Palantir, AI data centers, all the things that Trump and Elon ushered in. While the Talmudic courts, restoring the Sanhedrin to publicly rule, have been signed, sealed, and delivered for well over 30 years and passed into legislation by Republicans and Democrats because Republican and Democrat are completely fake manipulation tools. And they've been doing this behind our back for decades, while the masses who believe in politics were too busy bickering over if men get menopause, Cracker Barrel changing its logo because it's racist, and all the other dumb stories and agendas and psyops that these poor people who never, ever, ever realize that they're being baited, who never, ever realize they're being worked, who never understand divide and conquer when it is smacking them in the face 24/7, 365. Pray for these people. Pray that they be shown mercy, because many of these people are the very ones who are going to turn on us when they fall for the Antichrist and shame us for not getting on board, just like they've done at all times. We are in hostile territory here. Jesus said many times, his kingdom is not of this world. He said plenty of times, if you were of this world, they would love you. But since you are not of this world, they hate you. If they hate you, remember they hated me first. No student is greater than his teacher. No slave better than his master. And look, I don't know, again, if everyone who refuses to worship the Antichrist and accept the mark of his name is destined for the chopping block, but the overarching premise is pray for the best, but be prepared for the worst. I know exactly what my decision is. I wouldn't even think twice about it. I cannot wait to get out of here and get to my Father's house. And just like you, I'm very aware of all the different pitfalls, deceptions, and hardships that are ahead of us. Doesn't matter to me. The only thing that matters is the reminder that I have going off from Revelation every single morning. I have a lot of them. That's a good practice for you to adopt. Different things you're grateful for. Start your day off with positivity and thanks and praise. It really does change your day. It's very easy to get sucked into all the negativity and division in this world. It's a battle we have to constantly fight because if you don't, you will automatically lose it. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, the home of God is now among men, and he will live with them, and they will be his people. Yes, God himself will be among them. He will wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, nor pain. All of that is gone forever. Everyone who conquers, remember that, will inherit all of these blessings, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But cowards who turn back from following me, and those who are unfaithful to me, and the corrupt, and murderers, and the immoral, and sorcerers, and idol worshippers, and all liars, their doom is in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur. Conquerors. Perseverance. 1 Peter 5:4. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. 1 Thessalonians 2:19. For what is our hope, our joy, or the crown of which we will glory in the presence of our Lord Jesus when he comes? Is it not you? And this is how I want to end this, with the final lie of this world in which we are enemies of. Heaven is reserved for conquerors, those who persevere, those who love when it's not easy, those who forgive when the person does not deserve forgiveness in our eyes, praying for our enemies, loving all regardless. Christ showed us the way, and it's all hard to do, which is why most people won't do it. If you love Jesus, you won't do things that hurt him. Sin hurts him. It's very clear. And when we sin, it pleases the devil. Always remember that. And here's the other big lie. Sin's not making you happy. It never has, because it's not what it's intended for. Sin is only meant to drag you into hell. This world has repackaged sin and called it fun. But for people who have sinned their whole lives, sin after sin after sin, I'll get to it later, do you feel happy? Or are you always chasing that next shiny object? Is your happiness conditional? You got a raise, you won something, you going on vacation, you want something you can hang your hat on. I'll get to that in just a second. But it is the very thing that most people refuse to do, procrastinate on, and all it's doing is making them unhappy and making them less likely to make it to the kingdom of heaven. We live in a world that's made Christians seem annoying, hypocrites, weak, lame, boring, judgmental. We are the furthest thing from that. We don't lie to people. We don't cheat people. We don't deceive people. We don't harm the innocent for personal gain. We don't do all the things that these people who have painted us with that brush do regularly as a religion. And no one weak is going to make it to the finish line. That much is sure. Just know you're a warrior. Christians, tough as can be, especially in the times that we're living in right now. Don't ever let the world, this world of lies ruled by the evil one, the father of lies, don't ever let this world convince you otherwise. And don't care what people think. Why would you? This is a world that crucified a perfect man who went around healing, performing miracles, loving, forgiving. And when given the choice to free him or Barabbas, a murderer, they chose Barabbas. But we're at the end, at long last. I cannot thank you enough for all your time, your attention, for seeking the truth. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but the truth does indeed set you free. It makes it easy so you don't cling to this world, a world where everything is a lie, most people fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. Everyone's divided. We're called to love. Very few do that. And the very people who will offer to save your life when Neuralink or whatever they've got up their sleeve are planning to do the exact opposite. And what's on the docket for us now and moving forward is not just about our life, it's about our eternal soul. Well worth the journey. Not in my opinion, that's a fact. Now, and I hope that learning the truth, loving the truth, embracing the truth, because Jesus is the truth, and the only hope that we have in this world. Don't put your hope in man, only in Jesus. Anyone with the power or the status to be a savior in this world has no intention of doing so. I also promised that this would have a happy ending, and if you go through that series, you will understand. But I'll say it here again. God didn't give us all these commandments not only to lead us to heaven, but also to find peace and happiness. Because when we disobey, it creates distance from Him. And so doing what I do, avoiding sin, spreading the truth, caring about others and their fate, you can have peace throughout all this. Number one, I've taken away all the reasons for you to be scared by these people with their fake headlines and their fake boogeymen like China, Russia, radical Islam, in a way that most will be scared of completely fake stuff. And when you know that you have to leave this world one way or another, and that the only thing that matters is where you're going, and you go all in on the kingdom of heaven while you're serving God and waiting out patiently, then you can double dip and have peace and joy here, connected to God, serving Him, which gives you more happiness, anything you will ever chase, all these worldly treasures, wealth, cars, status. That is how you have a happy ending, with the ever-present hope of living in eternity with the Creator, without all these deceptions and all these lies, living in Satan's world, a funhouse of horror. But I hope the truth eventually saves you, and that you love the truth so much that you'll share it with your loved ones and store your treasures in heaven. One final thing, in the interim, my plan for this channel was for everyone to go through the 7 deceptions of the devil so we could all be on the same page in terms of proper salvation theory and all the deceptions therein, of which there are many. Because if you think we arrived at 40,000 different Christian denominations by accident or organically, well, you know better now. It also goes into deep detail into why you hear me calling out the Pope and the Vatican as wolves in sheep's clothing, but then you also hear me encourage, which I do for everyone, to pray the rosary daily, confess your sins, stay in a state of grace, which sound contradictory, but I already explained this deception in full in that 7 deception series. Like everything else, just a lie, just a way to divide, just a way to steer people away from the path to heaven. So if you came in reverse order and saw this first and now have to learn how to get right with God, I highly recommend that series. It was a labor of love just like this. And I had made a series last year. It took me almost the entire year with over 60 videos and over 70 hours of runtime. This is obviously a much more condensed one, just telling you only what you need to know. And while you can certainly go down the rabbit hole and explore other items of curiosity, of paramount importance of this time that we're living in is receiving forgiveness for your sins, repenting, turning away from sin, and going all in on making it to the kingdom of heaven. So you can learn more if you want, but what I'm doing right now is sounding the alarm. And that's easy for you. All you have to do is just share the series. But I would recommend just prefacing it whenever you're talking to someone, say, look, this is really important. You're going to see a lot of things that sound crazy, but always remind them, we all know what we're supposed to believe. We all got the exact same indoctrination, or you can call it education, however you want to word it, with whoever you're dealing with. So this stuff's going to sound crazy, but after going through it, it's very well supported. And there's a lot at stake that these people are never going to tell you about in terms of where this is going. Then pray. Pray that they'll come to know the truth, accept the truth, be saved by the truth, and then share the truth with others. Pray, love, forgive unceasingly. Endure, endure, endure. Be guided by the Holy Spirit, never by these vile serpents, just wolves in sheep's clothing, every last one of them. In 2026, you would not know their name unless they were there to deceive you. And I'm sure they have other things up their sleeve, so be ready. Keep watch. Stay holy. But from the bottom of my heart, words cannot express how grateful I am for you coming this far. I'm humbled beyond measure and grateful for your time, your attention, and your willingness to seek the truth. May God bless you and all your loved ones. May He preserve you here and now, tomorrow, until the end of days, and preserve your soul for all eternity. Thank you again. May God shower your loved ones and you with blessings. Thank you again, and have a great night.